Actually, according to the Bonner study, hay is detrimental to their health. Loose hay in particular, especially Timothy hay, extremely detrimental to rabbit health. It is not needed to control their teeth and actually causes periodontal disease, causes malocclusion, causes um, jaw issues by straining their teeth and muscles. Loose hay is, in fact, an extremely challenging food for rabbits and should not be fed rabbits. Pellets, on the other hand, correctly formulated, are actually ideal for them. They are the correct hardness. And rabbits actually don't need anything special to keep their teeth in line. If they have malocclusion genetically, they should be culled because that is not fixable. Rabbits do a thing called bruxing, where they grind their teeth down to their own. Hay is not necessary. In fact, nothing more than a regular pellet is actually all that's needed for them to keep their teeth in line. This comes from a 2017 study, the shape variation in the cranomandibular system of the prevalence of dental problems in domestic rabbits, which was a case study in the evolutionary veterinary science. That is the Bomber study that I'm referencing. And let me go just read you a little excerpt here. Hay seems to be the most mechanically challenging food as it is tougher and stiffer than pellets. It requires more chews per gram to be processed, which results in longer chewing bouts compared to pellets. This means that over a longer period of time, the teeth are predominantly axial loaded due to the elevated bite force. If we take into consideration that hay with a lot of hard stems has reduced nutrient properties and potential limits on digestibility, then rabbits eating predominantly hay need to consume large quantities to meet basic metabolic and nutritional demands. All of this promotes retrograde tooth elongation and incursion of the apices into the adjunct bone, most common finding in malocclusions. Furthermore, hay also promotes periodontal disease, impacted food, and therefore is not the best nutrition for rabbits. Grasses and other fresh plants, however, are abrasive but relatively soft. So they can be ground down with relatively low axial load of the cheek, and the primarily strain of the premolars occurs in a more physiological lateral stachial direction with the aid of shearing power stroke. So what they actually found is that properly formulated mini pellets, which is what we feed, is better for the rabbits. And now, just to follow this up with specifically my notes on Timothy hay on the multiple studies that I've ranged, this is from Feedopedia, which is the go-to for livestock and animal nutrition. Timothy, number one, let's just quantify this as far as what rabbits actually need nutritionally in order to meet a balanced diet. Rabbits need a 16% DM protein. 14% DE is the absolute base that they need in order to survive, DM being what is on the package, and DE being what they actually need in order to process their digestible energy. They need a protein at 16% DM. The protein in Timothy is only at best 13.8, and typically by the time you get it off the shelf is a measly 3 to 9%, which means it doesn't even meet the base protein requirements for rabbits to survive. The note from Feedopedia was for rabbits, Timothy hay has long been recommended to provide fiber in addition to concentrate feeds in rabbit diets for smallholder rabbit meat production. This was from 1966 and 1995, but more recently for pet rabbit maintenance. And contrary to alfalfa hay, Timothy cannot support maintenance in adults when used as a sole feed ration. So 80% hay cannot support maintenance feed. It is possible to include Timothy hay, possibly up to 60% in the pellet, as long as there's enough additives in a balanced diet without causing too many health problems, although they have run into issues with that, which is why it's not recommended to be used that percent. And if you are going to do it, you have to add a lot of soy in order to balance it, because soy will have a 30 to 35% protein. So you'd have to add a lot of soy to your Timothy pellet in order to meet a protein requirement. The nutritional value of Timothy hay for rabbits is not very high. Estimations of the digestible energy content range from 5.8 to 6.2 mg/kg. Protein digestibility is low. 62% only digestible for early young cut Timothy grass. Crude protein at 17% DM and 42 to 47% for mature hays, but crude protein digestible matter is less than 6%, and that goes all the way back to the 1940s. So they've known about this for decades. In addition, it must be pointed out that, as for most Procaine, the lysine content in Timothy protein is low and covers maybe 70% of the lysine requirements for growing rabbits. It also has a very low calcium content in Timothy hay, 0.33 on average, is less than a third. Um, and that can be advantageous or unfavorable depending on calcium content and other diet ingredients. Now, the issue is you usually don't add more calcium to balance it out when you're feeding an 80% Timothy hay, loose Timothy hay based diet, which causes, as I stated earlier, improper not enough calcium uptake, so weak bones, weak heart conditions, strokes, paralysis. Not in the level of calcium doesn't allow them to function correctly. It causes heart disease. Alfalfa is what we use as our base because of that. And just kind of my general overview, this comes with why we don't recommend Oxbow. We don't not recommend feeding your rabbits an Oxbow pellet or a small pet select because they have a very similar formulation. So what ARBA recommends is feeding a completely balanced pellet as the main source of nutrition. So the rule of thumb for selecting complete pellets for your rabbits should start with a baseline of 16% protein, 18% fiber. Grass or legume is the first ingredient, so alfalfa typically. Typically, feed instructions will suggest you feed a measured amount to most adult rabbits, ration twice a day. So daily intake should equal about 1 ounce of pellet per pound ideal adult body weight. Rabbits are crepuscular animals active at dusk and dawn with a rest and digestive period during the day. They are not grazers. They do not need to have food in front of them at all times. In fact, a properly fed healthy rabbit on a maintenance balanced pellet will only eat once or twice a day. They shouldn't be. The only reason they're eating all day long is because they're starving to death. All right, a completely balanced pellet should make up between 80 and 100% of a rabbit's diet. Fresh veg should be limited to no more than 1 or 2 tablespoons total in a day. You should not be feeding your rabbits salads. They don't need it. It's unnecessary. It's actually very disadvantageous for them. It puts them at disadvantage. It'll cause GI stasis and bloat. It's best to use fresh plants in extremely small quantities, only for the medical properties or as a supplement to the main nutrient source, because they can unbalance the complete nutrition in the pellet, and too much fresh fruit and vegetable can kill your rabbit by unbalancing their delicate hindgut functionality, throwing them into a bacterial overload, which leads to bloat and GI stasis. Salads are sugar. Sugar kills rabbits. The reason Oxbow is not recommended is because it lacks sufficient protein content and contains too much fiber. There is such a thing as too much fiber. In fact, it was proven by the Labas studies in the Advanced Rabbit Nutrition Manual that he came out with multiple other rabbit scientists, that they found out that a 25% if fiber exceeds 25% of the diet, the rabbit is unable to absorb enough nutrition in order to live, because it is pushing it through their system too quickly. So a 32% Timothy hay fed at 80% with salads, you're killing your rabbit by starving them to death. So again, we go back to that. But hay, no. Pellets. Feed them a balanced pellet. 16% protein DM pellet. No more than 18 to 20% max on the fiber. Proper alfalfa base. That's what you want to be feeding your rabbits. Don't feed them loose hays. Causes periodontal disease. Damages the teeth.